is keeping me awake. I keep thinking.
We'll keep an eye on what's happening in London and go there if there are any further developments. It's 18 minutes to 7. There have been few more important opportunities in the life of this country to speak and be heard than the Abuse in Care Royal Commission of Inquiry. For the most part, these were children and young people, and those who weren't were vulnerable adults. And they were betrayed by the people they should have been safe with and cared by. And because they were already in care or with trusted figures, where did they turn when that happened, and who would listen? The Royal Commission is a powerful acknowledgement of that betrayal and belatedly a place where those amongst us who were so terribly let down have a voice and people to really hear it. Now the Abuse in Care Royal Commission is appealing for information from survivors of abuse in faith-based care. Remember, this is faith and state care. Church or other faith-based institutions is what they're hoping to hear from people who are exposed to abuse there. Mike Ledingham and Steve Goodlass are both survivors of such abuse, and they're with us this morning to encourage people to come forward ahead of the redress hearings to be held from the 23rd of November. So this is your opportunity to put your names forward. Mike and Steve, we so appreciate you joining us this morning. You good men. Thank you for coming on breakfast. We're really grateful. Mike, kia ora, tēnā koroa. Mike, I understand you're a little bit worried that you might not hear me, so I'm going to start with you. What is it like to go before the Royal Commission and have them hear you? How powerful is that?
It is accumulation of a lifetime of bad memories and denial by people who are in power, you know what I mean? And I was devastated in 2002 when I found out about my younger brother, Christopher. The middle brother and I, we are 5th, 6th and 7th in a family of 8 kids, and we were the 3 abused, and Mum always said, look after your little brother. And we didn't know about each other, but he was that cunning, and I was devastated to find out about my little brother. So, and he'd gone to counselling, been told to write to the church, and they wouldn't reply. Wrote again, wouldn't reply. He was advised to come and talk to us. So I'm an ex-infantryman, and a great saying the infantrymen have is the best means of defence is attack. So I said, let's go public, and we did. And it started from there, but it was a torturous year. Both you started having nightmares and flashbacks to get them to the table, you know what I mean? And it's obviously gone on and on. So, yeah, that's how it came about, just my disgust with the church.
Well, Mike, I'm proud of you for doing it, and I know you were looking after your little bro Chris, and that was a wonderful thing to do. Mike, I'm going to bring in Steve now. Steve, I've got you. Yeah. You are with us from Otago, I think. And Steve, I was listening to an amazing podcast, The Reckoning. It's a long interview. I know you've worked on it, but you're also on it. And the thing for me that you talked about, which was quite striking, was that you had a teacher at St Bernard's, which was a school I knew, and he was also the school counsellor. He was a figure of trust in the school and the person you went to if something was going wrong. Well, he was the thing that was going wrong. And he made you feel so vulnerable that even when you blew the whistle on him, you were unsure about doing that to an extent.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of it, isn't it? That's part of the grooming process, you know. So to sort of draw you in and make you reliant on them. Yeah. So it's been a very, very sort of like long path, just trying to get him out of my head.
The way you smile, I don't want to put words in your mouth. The way you smile suggests to me that you are managing to get him out of your head, and he has no right to be in your head, and he needs to go away. But is talking about it, and is the notion of a Royal Commission really meaningful in that process?
Oh, no, absolutely. Because the thing for survivors is that, or that we're really understanding is that the church, despite what it says in public, it's not doing what it needs to do in private. Yeah. So it's not truly listening. So the Commission gives us the opportunity to get it out there into the public domain without the church sort of mitigating it. I mean, they've got incredible resources. To put that into context, the Royal Commission has an $85 million budget. the Archdiocese of Auckland has $111 million on term deposit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Mike, I'm going to come back to you in a moment. But Steve, I want to stay with you a bit longer. And I want to ask, what would you say to people who are watching, and we're going to put this up online, so people who aren't watching now may see it later, who think this was my story too, who were a victim of abuse in state care, in faith care. What would you say to them about why they should go and speak to the Commission, the Royal Commission?
Just to get the weight off your mind, get the weight off you, that you've carried all the life and the guilt and the disgust that you've carried all your life. Get it off and hang it where it belongs.
Mike, you used the word disgust. Can you hear me, Mike?
Yes.
Good man. You used the word disgust. Did you sometimes, were you so successfully preyed upon that you sometimes felt disgust towards yourself even?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. I wake up this morning about 3 and it happens quite often, and you just don't feel good about yourself, and like I've used booze and violence. Other people have other things to do. My brother Chris wouldn't hurt a fly, and that's what we used to have to fight as battles, and that's what terribly hurt me and motivated me. I didn't worry about myself, like I just carried on, used my head as a punch bag, got in random violence and drunkenness, and but sometimes you have to turn and do something for yourself and for others, and I just turned 70 the other day, and I haven't made all this up, like that. I haven't just decided I'm going to tell porkies, and
no, you haven't.
It's been there inside me all my life.
Yeah, and you've written about it in the Catholic Boys. Steve, I want to come back to you. In the Reckoning podcast, there's a photo of you as a young man, and it's a glorious photo, and you look full of possibility and hope and potential and all those things we hope for in our teenage boys. What was happening to you really? How much was your life being destroyed by what happened to you?
Look, there was a lot of conflict that was going on internally. I mean, for me, the greatest part of it was the psychological abuse over, 4 years of counselling by someone that basically coerced me and many others at my school to take our clothes off, to get naked for photographs. Yeah. So yes, there's a lovely smile that I put on there, but there was a lot that was going on underneath, and there's still a lot going on underneath the smile.
What do you say to people who are thinking about possibly going before the Royal Commission? Would you encourage them to do so, Steve?
I absolutely encourage you to. I really want survivors. You've got to come forward. You've got to come and talk about it, because we've got to make a change for the future, because this institution is not changing its ways. And unless we get it out here in the public domain, and this is our best shot, then it can continue to propagate what it has already done and cause so much harm.
Steve Goodlass and Mike Ledingham, I so appreciate you both joining us this morning. Fantastic. I really admire your bravery, and I really admire your truth-telling, and I know it will empower people to do the same thing. We're going to put this interview up online, and we will also put on our Facebook page details for how people can get in touch with the Royal Commission. Thank you both. I'm proud of you both. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
That photo, actually, it kind of mucks you up, that photo of Steve as a schoolboy, when you know what was happening to him. And Mike, who thought that he could take it on the chin himself and that he could deal with it himself. But when he found out that it had happened to his little bro, thought, nah.
And the heartbreaking thing is you think what a horrible thing to have happened to them as young people. But he's 70 now, and he's still living with that.
All his life.
All his life. It's horrible.
And that's why it's so important that people with a story to tell who are able to do go to the Royal Commission, because we need to hear those stories.
Also acknowledging how hard that is.
Hell yes.
To tell your story, because for so long they told their story and nobody listened.
No.
Yeah. And I always think, I actually cried 3 times reading the news last night, because there's some such sad stories. And this is another thing that I just think, it's one of those things where everything would fall into that category of before that happened and after that happened, isn't it? And that is so hard. The after stuff is it's life-changing. It's changed all their lives. And it's terrible.
Terrible.
Yeah, they were amazing.
Good men.
Yeah,
really good men.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny that Mike used the word disgust about himself? But
Yeah.
I really want him to feel proud of what he's doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
On Making News this morning.